The final part of my presentation evaluates and analyses the three chosen cultural heritage virtual branches and incorporates a discussion around the use of online evaluation testing tools, as well as ways for information professionals to work towards best practice in the accessibility of online information services. In this analysis of the virtual branches of three museums, each homepage has been tested with an online accessibility checker. The tool chosen for this was AC Checker, as the level of conformance being tested could be set to WCAG 2.0 AA. Before considering the reports for each homepage, it's helpful to consider the following pros and cons of using such online accessibility evaluation tools. The Web Accessibility Initiative makes the following points. There are advantages to using evaluation tools. For instance, they can reduce the time and effort required to carry out evaluations. When used carefully throughout the design, implementation and maintenance phases of web development, these tools can also assist their users in preventing accessibility barriers, repairing encountered barriers and improving the overall quality of websites. The evaluation tools can also determine the conformance of websites to accessibility checks, which can be executed automatically, and they can also effectively assist reviewers in performing accessibility checks, which then need to be evaluated manually. So while tools like AC Checker can be extremely helpful for information professionals, the WAI advises that they should be used with caution. The WAI notes that many accessibility checks require human judgment and must be evaluated manually using different techniques. Also, evaluation tools can sometimes produce false or misleading results. So, it seems, evaluation tools should not be used to determine conformance levels unless they are operated by experienced evaluators who understand the capabilities and limitations of the tools in order to achieve accurate results. The key point the WAI makes is that web accessibility evaluation tools cannot determine the accessibility of websites, they can only assist in doing so. Therefore, it seems that while evaluation tools can give a fairly clear indication of accessibility problems, accessibility compliance cannot simply be solved by relying on online tools such as AC Checker. Information professionals responsible for virtual branches need to be educated and aware of accessibility guidelines and standards in order to both understand the reported problems and to provide solutions to increase the accessibility of websites, in this case the virtual branches of three museums. Total reliance on accessibility tools will not provide a clear picture of the problems and required solutions. As my discussion of the role of cultural heritage institutions observed, if the accessibility of a museum's virtual branch is poor, then its capacity to share and pass on our cultural heritage will certainly be reduced. In different ways, each institution clearly states its mission to engage with its community of users. The Museum of Brisbane's mission statement is to play an essential role in the life of Brisbane by delivering an entertaining and informative program that advocates for and supports the city's history, culture and creativity. The Tasmanian Museum and Art Gallery states that its purpose is to collect, conserve, research and create knowledge, and to engage with, educate and inspire the community about our world. And lastly, the National Museum of Australia's strategic plan stated that it will reach out and involve people whoever and wherever they are. At the heart of each of these institutions' missions is a desire to become part of their respective communities, whether it is a city, a state or a nation. As virtual branches have become a vital aspect of how cultural heritage institutions engage with their users, conformance to accessibility guidelines becomes of paramount importance. The AC Checker accessibility tool provides information on known, likely and potential problems in its generated reports. Here, I am considering only known identified problems, although a longer presentation could have the scope to also work through likely and potential problems. What the AC Checker reports show us are the types of accessibility problems that exist for each of these virtual branch home pages. It seems significant that the National Museum of Australia has such a marked difference in the number of identified errors, and that they all relate to the question of colour contrast, something that could easily be fixed manually. For the other two virtual branches, while their error count of known problems is almost identical, the types of problems differ to some degree. The Museum of Brisbane report identifies a large number of images that do not provide alternative text. Again, this is a problem that is fairly easily fixed via HTML repair. It too has issues with colour contrast between text and background, which could be fixed by the CSS style sheet, which governs the site's style and formatting. More important, for both the Museum of Brisbane and the Tasmanian Museum and Art Gallery is the problem identified around compatibility with assistive technologies, as this is a key aspect of compliance with web accessibility guidelines. It was also identified in the literature discussed earlier as a common problem. The other problems for the Tasmanian site are the use of deprecated elements and some issues picked up around the navigation of the events calendar on the home page of the virtual branch. Based on the AC Checker, we can conclude that in terms of accessibility, the virtual branch for the National Museum is ahead of the other two institutions in terms of best practice and web accessibility. One reason for this might be that its online branch has been established for longer, with the other two sites being launched or relaunched in 2013. There may still be work being performed on their compliance with accessibility guidelines, however this of course is speculation. What is more certain is that the AC Checker reports provide us with assistance in then moving to a human evaluation which is guided by these identified problems. Using a tool such as the AC Checker is a vital part of the process of constructing a virtual branch that will enhance a cultural heritage institution to fulfil its mission of communicating and interacting with its users. For information professionals working in this sector, this should be one stage in the setup of a virtual branch, which is then followed up by further manual evaluation, testing and improvement. So what would be best practice for designing virtual branches that comply with accessibility guidelines? Vandenbach suggests that information professionals should render the content in HTML or XHTML and design the layout using CSS. This way, if it is discovered the site's pages are not fully accessible, a simple change to the CSS updates all pages, saving the site manager time and effort. Finally, creating an accessible site from the beginning is substantially easier than retrofitting an old one. While each of the virtual branches considered here have used CSS, it would seem that the National Museum has been far more successful in creating an accessible site. Given that the Museum of Brisbane and Tasmanian Museum and Art Gallery are new sites, there is now some retrofitting to do. However, given that CSS has been employed, the work involved would not be so great than if CSS had not been used. Jager and Swee suggest that there should be another step in the design process, user testing in the design phase. They observe, iterative design and testing that incorporates the participation of users is essential to the creation of an online information and communication tool that will be functional, usable and accessible. Special needs access are much harder for designers to identify and understand without the guidance of actual users. While this could impact on the time taken to construct a virtual branch, for cultural heritage institutions that aim to directly interact with their users, incorporating user testing into the design of their branches would provide a valuable step that may save time and energy in the future, in terms of meeting the necessary accessibility guidelines. In particular, the distinguishable and compatibility problems picked up in the AC Checker reports here could also be central to user testing. Colour contrast is a key issue in design, both for users with and without vision difficulties. More importantly though, if there is an identified problem around a virtual branch being compatible with assistive technologies, this is a serious breach of accessibility compliance and could potentially exclude users or diminish the user experience of the cultural heritage institution's community. The Western Australia Museum provides a great example of a cultural virtual branch that is working both within its institution and with its users to create a fully AA compliant online service. Its dedicated website accessibility project could be used as a model of good practice in this field for other cultural heritage institutions to follow. By clearly communicating with its users its goals and commitment to accessibility, the Western Australian Museum provides an example of best practice. It also emphasises the need for the cultural heritage sector to take significant action around accessibility, online services and virtual branches. My presentation has employed an analysis of the accessibility of 3 cultural heritage virtual branches as a means of exploring key questions around accessibility for information professionals. The discussion of guidelines, standards and literature highlighted the importance of accessibility for anyone involved in the construction and delivery of online information services, and the focus on cultural heritage institutions emphasised the need for them to commit to meeting accessibility standards so that they can fulfil their cultural heritage mission and ensure they are meeting their promise to their users.